Great, so that was step 2, build your axes in there, okay? Step 3, any suggestions? This is where I'm headed, right? Polygon. There's an intermediate step. What do I going to have to put on here? I'm going to have to put the bars, I guess, right? Yeah, so I say this is going to be a bar graph before it's a cumulative frequency polygon, okay? So let's put the bars on here. This 300 to 324 group, right? Well, I'm going to have 3 of them. These are the numbers that I am plotting, right? Okay, so we said this was 10, so I guess 3 would be somewhere like here. Nice you. Okay, there you go, 3. Okay, this part's easy. We can finish this off. Let's put in all the numbers. 21. Okay. So you should have something that roughly matches that. We've worked out the numbers. We've carefully labeled our axes. Chuck the bars in. Last step is the actual polygon. Okay. Now that's step 4. That's what I'll write. Polygon. But alongside that, you might like to add, because it's so easy to confuse, the way you draw a cumulative frequency polygon. Emphasis on cumulative. Okay. Is that we're going to join up the corners. Join up the corners. We are not going to join up the midpoints of each of the bars. We're not going to go here and here and here, right? If you have colored in your bars, which some of you have done, which is fine, okay, you'll need to get a different color out so that you can actually see the polygon we're going to draw. This is what it should look like, okay? There you go. There's my ogive, my cumulative frequency polygon. Now, the ever important question of why corners? Why not midpoints? Can anyone tell me, when is it that we do midpoints? Because sometimes we're supposed to. Yeah, that's exactly right. When it's not cumulative frequency, when it's a regular frequency. So you don't have to draw this, but just very quickly. If you had a graph like, no, sorry, it's a bad example. If you had a graph like this, obviously because it's not cumulative frequency, it's just regular frequency, it can also come down, that kind of thing. And actually we tend to expect that, bell curve type thing. Not only do you join the midpoints, like so, but you also are supposed to bring it back down to 0. It comes down to here. Okay? Now, here's the question, right? And this is a really big deal. So if you are still drawing right now, just put your pens down for a minute. Let me see if I can explain to you the insight that'll help you remember why it's corners sometimes and midpoints other times, right? What is the point of this graph? What's the intention behind it? Why is it useful to us? Why do statisticians draw it all the time, or make computers draw them? Okay. I sort of gave you a clue right at the start of the lesson, actually. I wonder if you picked it up. This lesson is 2 halves, right? Construction and interpretation, right? So actually the lion's share of what we're going to do today is, how do you read these things? How do you read them, okay, and get useful stuff out of them? Now, I know it's been a little while since you've done a lot of statistics, but what useful stuff do we read off this? Like, what do people tend to get out of graphs like this? Like, what's particularly more useful about this than about this, if this were the data?
Shows it increases and how quickly it increases.
Good. Okay, so you get a different sense for as people get, what are these things anyway? They're clearly not people or whatever. Okay, heights of objects, right? What is the general shape of the population and how do things taper off? That's correct. Okay, but there's a particular piece of information, 2 or 3 pieces of information, that are very hard to read off this, but they're dead easy to read off this. Okay. How do we measure, describe what's a group like? You have 3 ways to measure the center of a group. What are they? They all start with M. There's mode, the most common, right? There's the median, which is the middle score, and then there's the mean or the average, right? Now, which of these three, or maybe I should ask this, which of these 3 is easiest to read off this graph? Which do you think is the easiest? Mode. Clearly it's mode, because you just look, it's right there, okay? Mode's easy to see here, okay? But what's hard to see is, now where exactly is the median? You basically have to start from scratch. This doesn't help you at all, okay? However, on this graph, the median is super easy to see. Remember you just told me the median is the middle score, right? So there are 120 people in this group, right? So where's the middle score?
6.
It's going to be here. You just take this line, right, and you just cut it across, and then you'll get some height, right? So this graph is all about reading, number one, it's about reading medians, and later on you'll learn about, it's also the other quartiles, right? Quartile 1, quartile 3, and the median is quartile 2, okay? So being that, we're trying to read off median here. Let's just quickly read off the median, and if you've got your ruler there and another color, yeah, I don't, okay. Let's go. It's at 60, right? Actually, just to be perfectly correct, there's 120 scores, right? That's an even number. So the 60th person's not actually the median. Where is the median?
60.5.
Yeah, it's between 60 and 61, right? So if I put 61 in there, suppose that's where 61 looks. It's going to be the average of those two middle scores because they're both equally in the middle. So you get your ruler out, you put them at 60.5, right? And then you rule across. If you don't have another color, like I don't, maybe you do it in a dotted line because that way you'll be able to distinguish it from the rest of it. There you go. Okay, now what does this line represent? I'd actually write this in. It represents the median position, or if you like, the median rank, right? It's like, where am I in relation to everyone else? Answer, I'm right in the middle. Okay. Now, when I draw this line down, which you can do in a second, like so. Okay. This axis here is not about ranks, right? It's not about people. It's about, well, objects. It's about how high they are, right? So I would call this line, this is the median score, right? Or median value, if you like. So, what do you read off this? For this set of data, it looks to me like the median, number one, the median group is this one. This is the median group. This one in here. Kind of makes sense, I suppose. It is the biggest group, right? But more than that, I can say, well, the median score is probably roughly around, what would you estimate that to be?
370.
Yeah, 370. I think that's a good guess. So I would say from that, the median is approximately equal to, I mean, we're not trying to get precision here, we're just trying to get in the ballpark. It's approximately equal to 370, okay? Now, remember the question I was trying to answer. Why is it the corners and not the midpoints?
So you can see that.
Well, what would happen if it was the midpoints? Don't ruin your graph, okay? I'm going to ruin mine in a second, okay? But if I joined up the midpoints, I wonder if, let's see how much ink is in this. Find out in a second. If I joined the midpoints, this is what I would have. Okay. Now I see two problems with this wrong ogive that I've just drawn. Okay. Problem number one. I mean, in this case, the median actually tends to be okay. The median's okay. But suppose these values were off a little bit. Suppose the median was like a value like this. Okay. Now what happens when we go through that process? You say, well, the median position's here. You draw your line across, and you're like, what is this? It's not anywhere, right? It's not in any of the bars. Does it belong to the next one or does it belong to this one? It's kind of confusing, right? So there's your first problem. Problem number one, by doing this, and it's the same with quartiles. In fact, if I did draw position 30, or roughly, would be the first quartile. Position 90 would be the third quartile. You'll look at that later. But they map to something which is just floating out in midair. Okay, there's problem number one. Problem number two is, have a look at the end, right? Have a look at the highest score, okay? Now, if I said, well, the 120th person, right, up here, who has the highest height. When I read this green graph, the wrong graph, what does it tell us that this 120th person, the tallest, 120th object, right? How tall does it tell us that that object is? Well, you go across, and you're like, well, it's halfway between 425 and 450, right? It'd be this. Sorry, am I getting the door? Is that okay? Just shut it for me. I think it's latched, so just... Have they just moved on? Just shut it anyway. That's okay. Alright, so can you see what's happening here, right? Apparently, according to this graph, the tallest object is, because we drew it to the midpoint, right? It's nowhere near the maximum height, right? And this data doesn't tell us where that person is. Where the person in this group actually is, but common sense would tell you it should be further along. Like, I'd expect them to be sort of distributed throughout this group, right? I'm trying to estimate, yeah? Whereas if I draw to the midpoints, you're stuck. You'll never get past halfway of this bar graph. For you. I hope that settled it for you. This corners business, I swear, when I first learned it, I was like, some guy just decided, I like corners and some other guy likes midpoints, right? And so they're just like, we're just going to agree to disagree. It's not arbitrary at all, yeah.
Why do they just do midpoints in that one?
Why do they do midpoints here?
Yeah, why do they just do corners in that one?
Oh, I see. Okay, well,
Like,
again, it's about what these bars represent and how the graph is used. Okay, how the graph is used. So if I were to draw across, like a line from here, right? What kind of data am I interested in? I'm not interested in the end of that data set. I'm interested in the class center.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be interested in. Or if it was actually just, 4, 5, 6. I'm not interested in 4.5. There's no one on 4.5. That score doesn't exist. Like in the HSC, all the marks are whole numbers, right? So I don't want to be between values, if that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So like I said, I think the best way to understand it is to think about this guy. Think about this process, which is what we're about to do right now.